Okay, welcome everyone to Open Mobile Media's webinar on mobile and omnichannel. Over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be discussing how to define your mobile strategy in an increasingly complex digital world, create unique experiences across various digital touchpoints, and coordinate product and messaging across new channels for consistent and joined-up customer experiences. I'm Josh Gordon. I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Our focus here at Open Mobile Media is to share insight, thought leadership and best practice from the world's leading brands, and I'm delighted to be joined today by two giants of the financial services world. Firstly, we have Hayden Kirkpatrick, who is VP of Strategy and Innovation at Esurance, and secondly, we have Matt Schultz, who is Lead Digital Strategy Manager for USAA. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to be here, Josh.
So, before we start today's discussion, I just want to remind everyone that we are going to be recording the webinar, and we're going to send out the audio recordings next week. So the webinar is very much interactive. We've had over 1,700 people sign up for this, and obviously there's quite a few of you listening live today, which is fantastic. We want you all to get involved. We've got a number of anonymous polls that will be taking place throughout the discussions. Also, if you have your own questions, feel free to type these into the chat box, and we'll try as much as we can to try and get these incorporated into the discussions throughout the webinar. So obviously, the sooner you ask, the better, and more likely you are to have your question read out. We're also going to be using the hashtag OMSSF in relation to the Open Mobile Summit San Francisco, which you can see at the top right of the slide. So again, any questions or additional thoughts, be sure to tweet away. So very nice start to the webinar, and to gauge the temperature of our audience, we're going to begin with our first poll. So this should be coming to your screens now. You'll only be able to select one answer, and we'll give you around 15-20 seconds to do so. So the first question we have is, how much are you investing in new technologies and capabilities for mobile this year? So A, yes, this is a top priority. B, yes, this is important to us. C, not yet, but looking to. And D, no and no plans to. So we're getting up to half the votes so far.
Something tells me this is going to be a high top two box response.
So we're going to finish the last votes in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the polls are closed. So thank you very much, everyone who voted. As you can see, if we see 52% for yes, this is important to us, followed secondly by 29% not yet, but looking to, 16% says yes, this is a top priority, and 4% say no, and they have no plans to. Okay, Hayden, coming to you first. Are these results surprising to you?
Not at all. I mean, I think mobility is the hot topic, and it's the hot topic in all categories and all brands. In insurance, mobility is one of the holy grails we're looking to crack. It allows us to get more nuanced data and have an ongoing relationship with our customers. So for us, mobility is a huge component of our overall technological strategy for the next 5 to 10 years.
Fantastic. And Matt, how about yourself? What are your thoughts on this?
I think that aligns to what I would be thinking. It's really what people are going to do with the. This is important to us, but actually, are they going to invest money towards that? That'd be really interesting, and actually seeing where most of the participants are coming from, what industries. That'd also be very interesting.
And what about those people who said no and no plans to? What are our thoughts on those?
Might be on the wrong webinar. Not sure.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not looking to, somebody's going to come along and take your customers probably. I mean, I think mobility is so ubiquitous and it's everywhere to the point where if you don't have a mobile engagement strategy for your brand, it's very, very simple for someone to launch a mobile experience that gets a foot in the consumer's mindset, puts their brand front and center in the palm of their hand, and they will continue to grab disproportionate share of the market. So if you're in this 29 and or 33%, whether you're in the two box scores, you probably need to talk to your C-suite and get them on this train, because you don't want to have it leave the station without you.
Couldn't agree more. I think we'll leave the polling there for that one. I think just before we get into the overall discussions, I think it'd be helpful, just for a bit of I guess background for obviously our audience. I think we'll start with Matt on this one. But Matt, what role does mobile play in your organisation?
really for us, mobile is our key engagement tool and servicing tool. Well over 90% of our transactions are done through mobile today. We have both banking and insurance kind of baked into our mobile app today, and we have mobile web presence also. This could have something to do with the limited footprint we have in physical banks, and we don't have physical insurance agents like at every street corner either. So it's definitely a key tool for us along with our call center, but most of our transactions are done through mobile. So that's really our key engagement tool.
Fantastic. And Hayden, how about yourself?
Well, mobile is a crucial part of our overall customer experience. There's many ways in which we use it. Increasingly, we see mobile engagements ramping up across all different touch points, from sale to service to claims. And we launch value propositions in our mobile front end to create good customer experiences across all of those. What we generally see is a lot of channel hopping, and that's part and parcel of the omni-channel experience that we're discussing. We see a lot of customers who come in, start to get their quoting process and or get all the way to a quote, see the price, hold it, pick it up again on a web front end or even a telephone front end because they need more engagement. But generally, web and phone are secondary platforms for us now. Most of our customers come in through a mobile front end through one form or fashion, especially for self-service and other types, customer management more generally, and they jump channels a bit depending on where they see their need going forward. So as mobile capabilities get more and more nuanced, as the technology gets more and more savvy there, smart brands like Esurance are trying to figure out how you can present the right content and the right functions to the customer through the right front end. I think one of the key things to understand about omnichannel is it's not, businesses generally believe that omnichannel is creating parity customer experiences across front ends, which it certainly is, but the ultimate manifestation of omnichannel is creating the right experience for the right front end and elevating that. So when you know your customers are coming in and getting to a certain point in your quote flow or doing certain select customer service activities through a mobile front end, but then jumping channels, understanding how that movement goes through the customer experience and how they actually navigate your front ends and using that insight to deliver the right features and right functionality based on where the customers are engaging with your brand is a key part of your mobile strategy overall.
Wonderful. Excellent point, well made. And I think that one of the obvious things that you mentioned there, if we're looking at the capabilities and how technology is progressing, I think if we're all honest here, we probably admit that mobile as an area in particular is probably buzzword central. We're possibly maybe even guilty of that in the title of this webinar itself. But trying to cut through, I guess, some of the buzzwords just for a minute here. I mean, guys, based on your experience and obviously your organizations, what technology at the moment is actually exciting you compared to technologies where you think maybe we still have quite a bit of a way to go? Hayden, Matt, which one of you? Matt, would you like to take this one?
Sure, I can take this. I'm personally, and I think our company is really excited about all these new voice platforms and maybe the possibilities of where AR can take us to. With finance and regulations, it's very complex to do these kind of quotes and servicing through digital channels, especially mobile and our .com presence. So having a tool that, as these kind of technologies keep improving, some of these technologies start to mimic the human conversation. So voice provides some really good context and simplifies some of these complex financial discussions that nobody really wants to know about deductibles or find the right credit card for them. It's really, you want to simplify that as much as possible. If you can do that in a natural dialogue, that's really interesting on how that's going to start taking over interfaces here in the near future. AR definitely gives some context to basically every purchase decision you make. So as our goal at USAA is to help the financial security of our members, we're really excited about kind of the possibilities of where AR can lead us and give some context and extra information to help in the buying decision process real time.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Hayden, pardon me.
I would certainly agree with that. We are spending a whole lot of time looking at mobile telematics. This is a subdivision of the Internet of Things, specifically pertaining to dashboard computers and or connected car solutions that allow us to get more nuanced information from the customer in terms of driving behaviors, in terms of where they're driving, when they're driving, and that allows us to more accurately rate. So one of the things that's very exciting about mobile telematics, consumers are generally speaking, consumers of insurance are frustrated and annoyed by what they see as opacity in the category, a lack of transparency in pricing, a complete upside down relationship that they perceive between the insurer and the customer. It's a power dynamic that is not favoring the customer in the current environment. Mobility and mobile telematics allows us to both put our brand in front of the customer as well as explain and more directly link how behaviors lead to actions and lead to insurance pricing. It also allows our actuarial models to get a lot smarter about how we price customers in a more micro-segmented fashion. So let's say Josh and Matt both drive the same amount of miles. They have a similar demographic profile. They have a similar credit score. They have, on paper, very similar behaviors. But Matt works a night job and he's driving home between midnight and 3 a.m. every night, which is a high-risk environment. And Matt lives in Minnesota, where the weather gets to be pretty bad. Telematics will allow us to parse that out. It'll allow us to understand how much more risky Josh is than Matt and help us price it accordingly. That might not be good for Matt, but it's good for Josh, and it's something that allows us to give the right price to the right customer at the right time. So there are a lot of areas where we see that solution delivering consumer value, and we're still working on trying to figure out how we close the loop with customers.
Lovely. And I guess, those would be, the technologies you guys are obviously, seeing promising at the moment. If we're linking back to, that buzzword topic, are there particular technologies that you think might be, a little overhyped at the moment that you haven't really seen, any substance on yet? Matt, would you like to answer that?
Well, AR's really yet still to come out. There's some beginning work on that, but when you're talking about omnichannel, I guess something related to that would be artificial intelligence and data, using data to simplify the process for everyone. Everyone's trying to figure that out right now. So ultimately, yeah, it'd be great to have kind of an omnichannel experience, but what if you don't have to? What if you know enough about your members or your customers, their data, have a great database of information that can help define what they need when they need it, and just offer that up to them, be more proactive. I think that's kind of the world we're trying to move to. There really isn't a need to do omnichannel for sales and service if we can just prompt up those things in the right context and channel and take care of them immediately. I think everyone's trying to race to get to that with artificial intelligence, and definitely through mobile you're going to see that also with personalization and using data to provide better experiences.
And Hayden, how about yourself? What are your thoughts on that?
I certainly agree with the sentiment around big data, particularly since a lot of the use cases that you see in the pundit sphere are not necessarily practically applicable. So there's, one of the big problems with what Matt just described is that companies try and boil the ocean with these things, and that's generally not the way to prove the value. I would take that same comment and roll it forward to the Internet of Things. I think telematics as a function of the Internet of Things is very exciting. When I see talk of connected home and Internet of Things as it pertains to the insurance category, strategically from a visionary standpoint, I think there's something there. I think it's 10 to 20 years out, and there's a lot of heat being put on this component of the insurance category that I just don't believe the market's ready for, or that the brands and platforms in this space can manage. And I don't think anybody really understands how consumers are going to engage with that technology solution long term. So there's a whole lot of talk in the pundit sphere about these connected devices and connected homes and what it'll do to actuarial models and what it'll do to first notice of loss and various different claims experience elements. And I just think it's way too far across the horizon for insurers or really anybody else to be investing heavily in there. You're going to see a lot more activity in automobile autonomy and automobile connectivity over the next 5 to 10 years than you are home autonomy or home connectivity. And I think a lot of the effort being put in that space, at least on the insurance side, is mostly wasted.
Sure, definitely. And I think, if we loop this back then into, obviously, you mentioned telematics there, we've mentioned AR, looping back to, the mobile experience, which technology do you see having the largest impact on mobile usage then, on how your customers are interacting with your brand through mobile? How do you see it, specifically having, the biggest impact on the mobile space?
So I would say telematics is certainly interesting in that for the insurance business unit, but I would say shared services is probably more compelling for the consumer, because the consumers right now struggle with the way insurance conducts business. It's an overall service for consumers who want to hedge against risk and hedge against protection. But then once you actually get into using the product, it is not a very well designed customer-centric experience, and mobility bridges that gap. Telematics is a part of that. You pull in telematics, you create an experience where you can show customers how they can be safer, how they can drive better, how they can do simple things every day, ultimately to reduce their rate. That's fantastic. But a lot of the components of what drives insurance rates or insurance end-to-end experiences are outside of the insurer's control. So for instance, you get into an accident, you sort of file a first notice of loss. You can do that right from your handset, take pictures of your car and the damage, file it right from your handset. But then you're going to be sent over to a repair shop. And that's outside of the insurer's control. Now, in an environment where you've got a good repair shop with a good technology platform managing the repairs and some content management and or process management system at the shop, you can plug into their API, you can integrate that data, you can merchandise where the user's car is in its repair process right into the palm of their hand. An insurer can't do that. We can't build it. We can't go and get everybody on board with it. But there is an ecosystem of people that provide technology platforms and tools to repair shops all over the country to help manage their customer base. All we have to do is integrate with their API, and then we can create a more comprehensive experience around that. So the REST API / shared services strategy that's starting to take over technology circles is very exciting, because as an insurer, we are a service function underpinning a fairly broad transportation ecosystem or personal property ecosystem, but we don't have control really over any of the actual supporting components of it. Being able to integrate with partners who do, and being able to put our brand in front of an integrated customer experience for that customer is a massive opportunity for us.
Definitely. Like I say, it's an interesting point. And, you mentioned that it's more a service of other services, I guess. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
I certainly agree that APIs are definitely taking off. We need to look at both those internally and externally as a separate product too, and that's both insurance and banking on our side, which is probably a new muscle for our industry as a whole. Basically, engagement around insurance, and that's low as it is. It's hard to get into the telematics space. People don't want to use their phone in their vehicle. They'd rather interact with the tools that are in the car from the manufacturer already. So I definitely see, to me, I see these voice assistants being very prominent here in the next couple of years. You're already seeing that with Alexa, Google Home, just Google Assistant on the phone. I see that taking over part of kind of app interfaces as they shift from really something you navigate to using an assistant to talk to. That'll be primarily done through the phone to start with, until that becomes broader to your home, to your car, to everywhere else. But I definitely see that rising, the whole personal assistant, voice assistant platform.
fantastic. I think that that segues perfectly into next poll we're actually going to have. So obviously we've spoken there about some of the technological innovations that are being developed, and obviously now I'd like to move more into I guess the actual proliferation of these new platforms and channels themselves. So we're going to bring up another poll now, which should be coming onto your screens as I talk. So the poll is: to what extent is your business investing in new channels and platforms? So the answers are A, yes, this is a primary focus; B, yes, this is important to us; C, not yet but looking to; and D, no and no plans to. So we'll give you about 15 seconds to answer that now. And just a reminder, guys, we can also do audience questions as well, so if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat function. So we're going to finish the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lovely. So the results are in, and unsurprisingly, we have a similar trend to the last poll. So we have 45% say yes, this is important to us. We have 27% saying not yet, but looking to. 23% yes, this is yes, this is top priority, and 5% say no, and they have no plans to. Hayden, what are your thoughts on these results?
Well, I suppose that, not terribly surprising. It's sort of falling along a bell curve here. I suppose it depends entirely on what you mean when you say new platforms and channels, because the access points and channels by which you engage with customers are becoming increasingly complicated, whether it's mobile, social, conversational, whatever. And if your firm isn't looking at that and trying to understand what's going to happen in that category, you're going to be behind the market and you're going to be gapped. Now, for us personally, we are undergoing a pretty aggressive digitization process. And that is one of the key areas where we are taking new platform strategies, new architectures, new tech stacks, and applying them to our current business model. That's a crucial area for us. There's also quite a bit of machine learning and neural network solutions that we're exploring. And that's generally around point solutions or specific problems. So as Matt articulated earlier, those platforms, while compelling and powerful, come with it a certain inherent risk. And you can find yourself trying to boil the ocean pretty quickly if you're not smart about the way you deploy those things. So I see folks like Lemonade doing really interesting things with machine learning for fraud detection, with facial recognition software and video identity for claims management, for fraud detection. And these are areas where taking those technology platforms have immediate bottom line benefit. So as you're thinking about how do I leverage the upcoming technology strategies that are going to drive categories and businesses forward, it's important not to get too far ahead of your skis on something like that and put in heavy-handed platforms that you haven't really tested and optimized and that you haven't used to deliver bottom line business benefit, because there won't be an ROI there. So when we're looking at how we incept and use new platforms, a lot of it is about re-architecting and digitizing and getting ready for a faster, more agile, more aggressive world in delivering and deploying products. And then when we look at really heavy-handed technology solutions or platforms that might be difficult to incept, we try and find point solutions and or specific use cases where we can actually drive bottom line value for the firm with a new technology strategy. And those are all areas where we see, as things become more complicated and as front ends become more diffuse, your discipline around how you architect your solutions and how you actually bring products and services to market and realize an ROI will be crucial in justifying technology investments going forward.
And Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely, this is a little bit more surprising than the first poll that you did. It's probably, could be a small investment, but I'm curious to see how much people would be investing in each of these new channels and platforms. At some point, the operating cost of really working all these new channels and platforms is definitely very high. So it's really interesting that 45% think it's important to them, and there's some that are 23 is that this is a top priority. I think everyone's looking to get into that so they don't get left behind. So you need some presence there. It's really how do you start evaluating your business and understand how will my business change potentially with these new platforms and channels, as opposed to can I take my current sales service, whatever kind of your engagement model is, and migrate these to other platforms. That doesn't work as well, or only works in some cases. So it'll be interesting to see how much people invest there going forward. Definitely want to look at how your users are utilizing these platforms.
Definitely, and I mean, obviously, on that note of new platforms and channels, Matt, how have you, I guess, what sort of things in particular have you guys been investing in? What's of interest, and how would you say this plays into how your customers, are experiencing your brand through mobile?
I think the main thing for us is we want to be where our members are. So that's changing a little bit. The world of just dealing with kind of .com and mobile, just dealing with mobile was really fun, and now it seems like Amazon's coming out with a new technology weekly that we all have to figure out how we're going to apply our business to a little bit. But we definitely want to be where they are. We have a presence in Apple News, Facebook Messenger. We're piloting an Alexa skill with Clink.ai, which was just announced a couple of weeks ago. But definitely want to be looking into all these other software embedded platforms and see how our members are moving there, and really getting out in front of that to at least approach how we're going to tackle that from an architecture standpoint and how our business may change. The brand question is a tougher one. Our brand and trust are really the most important tools in our toolbox right now. So we definitely want to look into borrowing moments from companies like Amazon and Facebook, because that's where people are. But we have to be careful on what that means for our brand, and really there's an opportunity cost every time you do that. So we're going to lose a little bit maybe on the brand, but gain some with our reach and engagement. So we're taking it case by case really to see where that goes, but definitely working on the architecture to set up a platform for dealing with all these the voice platforms and bot platforms, and then looking into seeing how much we need to invest into each one of these channels and platforms as our members start going into them more.
So reach and engagement being, I guess, a highlight there then. Hayden, how about yourself? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I certainly think all of Internet of Things for home notwithstanding, I think most of the hot technology platforms and topics that are out there today are really interesting to us. Digitization is the primary one. We're also tinkering around with machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I think that as your consumer data sets become more rich, as you get more unstructured data on who these customers are, as that billions and billions of points of data start flooding into your systems, frankly, no human's going to be able to mine them for insight, right? It's just not. There's a certain limited capacity, both in terms of time and resources, with human beings doing this work. But if you plug in a machine learning layer, particularly a Bayesian algorithmic platform, you can get a whole lot of really rich insights out of fairly extensive data sets. And as anybody in insurance will tell you, data is king, and generally data-based insights are king. I'm not an actuary. I don't play one on TV, but those guys, they comb over tons of data looking for hidden insights that can help them better manage risk and better manage pricing. And at some point, with data sets getting ever more complicated, we need to provide tools and solutions and platforms that will enable our actuaries to be able to get at hidden insights much, much deeper than they can now without those systems working on their behalf. I think where you start to get into some tension in the insurance category is whether those insights will be actionable and whether they will be allowed by regulators. So the holy grail of a machine learning solution for insurance would be having bots constantly analyzing unstructured data sets and constantly analyzing more nuanced consumer variables than what we currently have, and then optimizing pricing structures based on that. And that's where the regulator steps in and says, you can't use half of these variables to price, or I'm going to allow you to use credit in most of the nation, but you can't use credit in California. So there is this weird place where insurance operates that limits our ability to leverage technology platforms most effectively. But if you're just talking about the ability to uncover hidden areas of risk and price those things accordingly, or optimize your price based off of that, machine learning is a fantastic tool with which to do that and get a deeper understanding of your customer and help manage your business more effectively.
Wonderful. And you mentioned obviously there, we're talking about, a greater understanding of the customer and really obviously making this, I guess, a much more customer-centric operation as such. I mean, one thing we all know is that obviously, customer expectations differ from one channel to the next. How do you guys find yourself adjusting to these expectations, and what sort of metrics do you use to measure their success? Hayden, do you want to take this one?
Sure. We focus almost all of our measures on a per customer basis, and that's for unit economics. That's also for targeting. And designing your systems around that strategy will help in this regard. So a customer is not going to forgive you if a customer starts a quote from, say, Alexa, and Alexa has their email address, Alexa has all this sort of metadata on that customer, and then they want to pick it up on the web, they're not going to forgive you for making them start over again. That's going to be considered a point of friction and a failure in the customer experience, and most customers might not even go through it. So if you are designing around a user file or a customer file, as opposed to your internal operations or the front end, you'll have a lot more success in this area. And that's a mental shift that technologists and business leaders across all categories need to make. It's not about you, it's not about your system, it's not about your business, and it's not about your teams and your departments. It's about the consumer and how they consume. And some of the interesting things with the digitization of platforms is that you can create this very rich individual customer file. You know how they're going to interact. At every interaction, every touch point, the file self-updates. So when they jump from one touch point to the other, it's as simple as saying, give me your email address, or better yet, Chrome already has it, and I'm going to present you with a user experience that picks you up exactly where you left off. You channel hopped, I hopped with you, and the case file that we had started on this other device or this other front end immediately picks up where you left off. And that's some of the challenges you get into with current or legacy companies trying to adapt to this new environment. Because a lot of companies will organize, this team is the mobile team, this team is the web team, this team is the conversational UI team. And then maybe you have a customer service or a customer experience strategy professional who oversees all of those functions and is looking at your solutions and looking at your products through the lens of the customer. That's a fairly advanced thing for companies to have at this point, assuming you're not going through a transformation, right? If you're going through a transformation, most companies are organized based on the front ends as they've come along. And what we see, particularly in the Bay Area, is a lot of tech companies rearranging their orgs to better serve the customer. So you'll have customers that are organized, or you'll have teams that are organized around specific value propositions as opposed to front ends. And that puts the customer more central in terms of the way the design strategy is carried out. So there's a lot of perils and pitfalls in trying to keep up with the pace of channel disruption and the pace of technological disruption. You're not going to be forgiven for having the most advanced conversational UI that doesn't link to any of your other front ends. It doesn't matter how quickly you get them out to market. Consumers are going to expect you to optimize around them and where they consume, not around your technology platforms or the front ends with which you engage. And the best thing you can do for that long term is make sure your platforms are digitized and that they're architected around customer data as the central component. And then make sure your departmental teams are organized so they're thinking more in terms of how consumers touch your products across multiple places and less in terms of the channels that actually deliver that message.
Fantastic. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree a lot with what Hayden was talking about as far as the metrics go. I think we're finding, though, that the expectations are a lot different in mobile versus the chatbot conversational world. With mobile, it is immediate demand, real-time experiences, and you have to be right all the time. I think because everyone's really bot strategy and what you're seeing out there from bots and chatbots and conversational UI isn't great right now. I think there's customers expect that not to be so good to start out with. We have a little while to get that right. That being said, I don't see a lot of traditional type of sales and service functions being done, like quoting insurance or necessarily applying for things through those assistants right away. They're using for news and music and things in context, and those things will come later as far as our business goes. But it's how you start developing a relationship with your customers and members utilizing these platforms, really trying to gauge the use metrics to understand the engagement model. So how many times are they using this, but also measuring the quality of the responses, and are they actually completing the responses and moving forward. So we measure each one of those touch points also. But it's also time to start exploring like what kind of functions can we leverage for those new platforms, and how we can get data with them that will enhance the whole ecosystem of all the information we have on our members to serve them better.
Fantastic. We've actually got a question here from Wagner Trindad. I just want to obviously make sure I'm saying that right. Matt, we'll ask you this one first. So Wagner's question is, how do you deal with resistance from customers regarding using new technologies or testing new technologies?
Well, I think like a lot of companies, we start by piloting those new technologies and working out some of the kinks that way. Being affiliated, you have to have a military background really to join USAA. So we have our members are a little more used to technology than probably the average citizen in the States. So we have a little bit of an advantage that way, that they're more apt to try out new technology compared to maybe some other companies. So we get a little bit of a path there, but it's important to pilot these and really be open on kind of the where they stand right now and start small. So one or two things on a Alexa skill versus like Hayden had talked about, boiling the ocean. Don't want to do that right out of the gate. Try to prove that and keep adding on to that using agile methodology.
Fantastic. And Hayden, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100% with what Matt said, right? Be agile, be nimble, test a lot, test actively before you ever actually deploy stuff. When you deploy it, test it and pilot. Constantly be willing to tweak and constantly be willing to fail fast, right? I mean, if you see something that's not working, or maybe you get so far ahead of the conversational UI space that customers aren't keeping up, you can pull, if you've architected properly, you can pull that out or flip a switch and sort of turn that off, go figure it out in the background, and then redeploy it to customers when you've got a more optimized user experience. But what a lot of companies end up doing, what a lot of brands end up doing, is they put into place a platform. They say, chatbots are really hot. Let's go ahead and put a platform in, and then let's sort of train it to do a few things, and they don't nurture it. Or worse yet, it starts to fail, and they keep it in. So you have to be very, very quick in the way you've sort of organized your teams and the way you've organized your business to be able to respond effectively to customers. But I think Matt really hits the nail on the head when he says test, optimize, pilot, limit your risk, limit the reach these things have into your business, because you don't want to risk sort of tanking your core product offer or pissing off your customers by something going sideways. If you can limit the exposure to it. So before you go big with some of these things, you should make sure that you know exactly how customers are going to use it, how they're going to interact with it, and that you've tested into that fairly aggressively, so you have confidence in what exactly is going to happen to your business when you deploy.
Fantastic. Yes. So not tech just for the sake of having tech, but actually making sure it's obviously provides a service to the customer. I think with with the rise of various different platforms, channels, technologies, I guess one of the inevitable challenges of omnichannel strategy is ensuring consistency, something that you both touched on earlier, and I guess having that joined up approach, obviously both in your standards of service and of course brand messaging and the individual product itself. So the next poll that is coming up is going to be asking our audience how I guess joined up and consistent their omnichannel strategy is. So it should be coming up on your screens right about now. So the question is, to what degree does your organization provide a consistent customer experience across different touch points? So the answers are A, yes, we've excelled at this, B, we've achieved this, C, no, but we're on the way, and D, no, we're not even close. So the votes are coming in now. And we'll finish the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the results are in. So we have 55% say no, but we're on the way. 21% say no, we're not even close. 16% say yes, we've achieved this, and 8% say yes, we've excelled at this. I think if those 8% would like to make themselves known, I think we'd all be keen to hear how they've been getting on. I guess from the results we've got there, guys. I mean, Matt, what are your thoughts here? Are you surprised by what we see?
I think that's right on target. That is not easy to do. Even if you are omnichannel, there's a good chance you're not omnichannel at everything you're doing. These systems, especially for larger companies, even Hayden for USAA is around a bit longer, but definitely these systems are developed over time. So trying to update all of your systems and architectures to be able to be omni-channel across all these different touch points, and now you're adding all these new channels and platforms to it, which has new technology challenges. So definitely want to leverage the APIs and services out there to make that happen. But really, this is about what I would have thought coming out of the survey.
And Hayden, how about yourself? Any surprises here?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by this at all. I mean, as Matt sort of noted, the front ends with which you have the opportunity to engage with customers are evolving faster than your platforms are. And so it's the risk of sort of a digital strategist or product strategist is that you can never really keep up or stay ahead of the diffusion of front ends here. And I'm not in the camp that believes consistent or parity experience is important. I believe that optimized experiences are important. So for instance, every customer on the planet needs the ability to quickly, like within a few touches, download their insurance card to their mobile phone. Why? If they get pulled over, they don't want to be sitting there fumbling around trying to find the card when the cop is asking them for their proof of insurance. On your website, not so much. I mean, I just don't. Our customers rather, don't download and print off their insurance card as much anymore. It's like it's a piece of paper. It's just not what our very much younger, more technologically savvy customers generally want to do. So having that prominent on your website is not, even in the self-service portal, is not as important as it is on your phone. So it's delivering the right experience at the right time to the right front end. I don't think any customer is going to want to start a claim from Alexa. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to wait until they get home to start a claim. They're either going to drive it into a shop and start a claim, or they're going to start a claim right there from the palm of their hand. But by God, when they wake up in the morning, they're going to want to know where their car is, and they might ask Alexa to get a status update on their repair. So you have to architect around a solution that pulls all of the customer data and the relevant information into one layer, and then the front end engages with that for just the point solutions that they need. So it's providing parity service is important, but a consistent experience isn't as important as an optimized experience. And that's where understanding that and having your customer experience teams understand that will help sharpen and hone the way you engage with some of these new technologies and the way that you create user stories and use cases around leveraging those technologies for your business. And I'm not surprised at all that people are on the way, because the 55% of customers that say they're on the way and the 21% that say they're not even close, once they get on the way or get closer, something else is going to come out. And then they're going to be right back to not even close, behind the gun, on the way. So don't worry too much about trying to chase every fad or stay up on it. Make sure that your systems are architected appropriately. And then as these new fads come out, make sure that you know and have tested into how customers might engage with it. Make sure you understand where it fits into your omnichannel customer experience, and then be judicious in the way that you roll out value propositions to go at those particular point solutions.
I guess, yeah. I guess it slightly changes my next question. Then, if I was going to ask, I guess, how you ensure consistency. But I guess maybe the real question I should be asking you guys is, how do you ensure that each platform is optimized for whatever you see its purpose to be? I guess, Hayden, you maybe partially answered that there. Matt, what are your thoughts on that as well?
I agree with that. I think the days of parity are gone. Technology is moving way too fast to sync in with one technology and have it really be consistent over all of the platforms. For us, it's really doing the proper research and understanding, both from an ethnography and quantitative perspective, how our members are using each of these platforms, and providing that optimized experience and taking advantage of the key features, whether it's native or responsive web design, or leveraging services on the back end that make this development process a lot simpler, so we can keep up with all these new channels and platforms that keep coming out. But it is about optimizing for each of these channels now. I think we've moved away a little bit from the consistent experience overall, and by leveraging kind of the data strategy, hopefully you don't have to do the omni-channel bit as much. Maybe it's one or two taps of a mobile phone to complete a sale, rather than pages upon pages of an insurance application. I think that's where we're trying to move to. So there really isn't a need for omni-channel as much if you can get it done right away.
Okay. Then I guess we've touched on consistency. We've gone on to optimization. I guess if these things aren't enough of a challenge for you guys, I guess personalization is obviously a very hot topic and I guess an aspiration for a lot of brands these days. What factor does personalization play in your omnichannel experience? Hayden, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think I look at personalization and customization is very similar to what Matt was just articulating, right? So once you get into the consumer ethnography, it's not about personalization of these experiences is not about us. It's not about your brand. It's not about your business. It's about the customer. And I can't tell you how many times when Alexa was rolling out, it was sort of the hot topic of CES this year. They were everywhere. And it was like a race to see how many insurers could say they had an Alexa platform. And all of them launched by saying, now you can get an insurance quote on Alexa, as if anybody wants to talk to Alexa about their insurance pricing. We have no research or evidence to suggest that people want to have a conversation with a bot getting a quote. It just doesn't work. But the insurers want to sell more policies. So I want to sell policies. Here's a new front end. It's a gadget. I'm going to sell policies from this front end, and it's completely devoid of a consumer insight that suggests that customers want to shop there. So Matt's got the right strategy and the right approach. You got to survey your customers. You have to understand how exactly they view the platforms and how they would use it in their own daily lives, and then leverage that to create an experience that fits within their framework of using the front end. And you might find that there's a lot of really interesting things that you could do with that once you stop thinking about your business first and start thinking about your customer first. So you could create a solution where you say, as an insurer, your vested interest is to keep your customers safer and help them avoid accidents, because when they have accidents, you have to pay claims. So you could create an Amazon Alexa plugin where whenever someone says, okay, Amazon, or okay, Alexa, tell me about my day, you could say, Esurance we're forecasting snow today. Esurance suggests you try and work from home, or if you need to go to work, wait 2 hours later because the snow will have died off. Like that's an actual value proposition you can deploy where you're saying, I am looking out for you because we're both in this thing together. I'm not trying to push you more products to this front end. I'm just trying to provide you contextual information that is relevant to what you're asking for when you ask for it. That's what these consumers are going to demand. And the higher end customers who adopt these technologies more rapidly are going to have higher demands of how you actually serve them through the different front ends. So I think Matt nails it, right? Get a bunch of customers, put them into your lab, go through ethnographic studies, watch them engage with it, find out how they would use it, find out how it fits into their daily lives, and then come alongside them with your brand. Don't try and educate them or move them into a place where you're getting them to use the front end in a different fashion, one that serves your business, not their interests.
Yeah, wonderful point, well made there. Matt, what were your thoughts on that as well?
As far as personalization, that specifically kind of touched on it before. I guess the only thing I would add to that necessarily is that really being customer obsessed, we want to create that relationship with our members. Part of that, the personalization helps do that a little bit, and we want to experience that, personalize the experience. Definitely have it feel like a one-to-one experience for our members, whether it's sales, service, or some sort of value-added utility experience, which those actually are a little easier to personalize rather than just your sales and service kind of experiences. But definitely personalization plays a huge factor in our experience right now, and helps our members get to where they need to go, and by proactively providing the right solution for them.
Wonderful. So I guess we're coming towards the end of the webinar here, and we've covered quite a bit here. I guess, guys, if you had to give one lasting thought for our listeners, whether that's a tip, best practice, or even just some blue sky thinking, what would your your best bit of advice or thought be on creating those outstanding experiences across mobile and the digital world? Hayden, final thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say stay calm, focus on your customer, and then carry on, right, and test into it. Don't chase every fad. Let the market develop. You don't have to be first to market with everything. You have to be right to market when you go. So, there's this sort of old adage that the first person out with a new product or strategy takes a significant portion of the market, and then the second follower comes in. That's generally for new products or new inventions that are not sort of optimization tweaks on our current product. When new front ends come out and new customer experience touchpoints come out, being the first to market doesn't help you at all if you botch it. So you don't have to be the first person with an Alexa bot, or you don't have to be the first person with a Facebook Messenger bot. It's not about getting there first. It's about doing it right. You don't want to turn off your customers to your brand or make them think that you're not tech savvy, or that you don't get it, or that you're not engaging with them on their terms. It's important to take the extra time to make sure that you get it right and that you test into it before you go broad, because consumers will punish your brand for it if you mess it up. And a lot of technologists just want to run first. It's important to sort of make sure you're pumping the brakes, that you're examining the customer's experience on this, and that you're optimizing around them.
Fantastic. So a lasting thought there, make sure you do it right or your brand will be punished. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely agree with a lot of what Hayden was talking about. I guess I would add, he pretty much talked about the customer end of this. Just don't, as these new platforms and channels come out, just don't offer the same thing you're offering necessarily in a new channel. You're not going to be able to sell the same things or use them in the same way all the time. These provide new opportunities for you. Is there a way you can look at new adjacent business opportunities with these new platforms out there and test into those? There might be an opportunity for your sales and service platforms in the future, but right now it's kind of what those platforms are. How do you take advantage of them, get data from them, and increase your business overall? Definitely start with a flexible back end and create micro experiences that can work across channels and be smart with your investments as we move forward into this new world.
Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, that now concludes today's webinar. We've had some really fantastic discussions, and obviously, some great participation from audience as well. My apologies, we weren't able to get round to answering all of your questions. I just want to say, obviously, a massive thank you to our panelists, Hayden and Matt. Matt, Hayden, it's been a pleasure to have you both on here, and obviously really great to hear both of your perspectives on the topics we discussed. So before everyone leaves to get a well-deserved coffee, just a quick reminder that we'll be sending out recordings of this webinar next week. For any colleagues or friends who may have missed it, or any parts of the conversation you might have missed, not to worry, you will be receiving it in your inboxes soon. What's more is that Hayden and Matt will both be joining 90+ more outstanding brand speakers this November 29th and 30th in San Francisco at the Open Mobile Summit. The event has 4 purpose-built separate tracks on mobile product, mobile marketing, mobile engagement, mobile UX and design, and lastly, mobile tech and innovation. So if you like today's webinar and you want to hear more about thought leadership, best practice, and case studies from more of the world's biggest brands and mobile-first pioneers, then please do check out the Open Mobile Summit. You can see it on your screen now, and just some of the outstanding brands that will be speaking at this year's event. So for more information, be sure to check out the link to the summit brochure, which we should have just sent through the chat function now. And as a last thank you to all of our listeners, we'll be sending out an exclusive discount code along with the event recordings. Should you want to attend, obviously you can save a little bit of money there as well. Once again, just a final thank you for everyone that's joined us, and obviously a big thank you to our speakers, Hayden and Matt. I hope you all have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.